was there for pretty much 10 years, and in that time the band had got going, and I'd married and had 2 children, and we were sort of talking about having another one. So I couldn't think of a better place really than to come back to the island to raise the family.
Yeah,
and that's exactly,
and that's where you've stayed ever since.
That's where we've stayed ever since, and it's going to take a lot of Semtex to get me off.
Because I'd heard a rumour that when you went up to London originally, you took a van up there. Yeah, and you were a drummer.
The old milk van.
Yeah, and that's where you slept for a few weeks, wasn't it?
I did, absolutely. Yeah? It was really, really grim.
Yeah, I bet it was.
It was. If somebody filmed it, it would have to be in black and white because that's the only way you could get it. It was a Bedford Dormobile van.
That's the one with the sliding doors.
The sliding doors, fantastic. It did 30 miles an hour top whack. Had a fantastic column gear change that fell off. So I was having to do things with a mole grip wrench, to try and change the gears and stuff. That if you went for a particularly nifty gear change, you'd hit the clutch on the mole grips that would fly off.
Yeah.
Now you'd be stuck in 3rd gear, sort of trying to go around the corner, feeling with your left hand trying to get the mole grips on the floor. And that used to be the old milk van that I did a milk round with Don and Joe Butchers in Rue Street in the year before I left the island to go to London. And isn't it funny that this sort of the idea of kids and being idle and not really wanting to work? But when I look back at it, I did a milk round in the mornings, 7 days a week, because that's what it was.
Yeah.
You sort of clean the cows out in the afternoon. In the evenings, I'd go playing at the holiday camps, sort of 5 nights a week. And I think there was one of those nights I also worked at Summit and Motors on the petrol pumps.
Really?
In the evening. It's amazing because you just think, what. But I suppose there wasn't telly, wasn't there?
No, that's right. You didn't have the Wii box or the Xbox or whatever it was.
Right.
Then,
no, you just got out and did it, and I've always sort of thoroughly enjoyed going out and working and making a few quid. And it which seems ironic now that I find myself with so much time on my hands that it's very hard to get me in the studio.
Yeah. Well, you're making up for lost time.
I am. Maybe that's
Definitely.
it. I'm doing it all backwards. Yeah.
So is it true then that when you left the island and went out to London to seek your fame and fortune, I mean, was that why you went? Did you think that, I'm going to go out there? And because I believe you went up as a drummer.
Yeah,
wasn't
I
it?
did. Yeah. That was the thing that I wanted to do. I'd been playing really since I was 11 years old on the island in various island groups. I started with Pseudo Foot, Martin and Annie Cave's band, and we used to play at the Ride Queen when it was there at what's now Binfield Marina, the Gurnard Hotel, and they used to be. The Gurnard Hotel obviously isn't there anymore. I think it's a block of
those People's Flat, isn't it? Yeah, opposite the Portland Inn.
Yeah,
which was a fruit and veg shop at those
days.
They
probably just housed the clientele because I always remember them. It just went from pub to there. Nobody went anywhere. And the Wood Vale in Gurnard and stuff. So it was local stuff. And then I got into the holiday camps with Pete Cotton and just really all the island faces. That it was quite a small scene, but a really, really healthy scene.
Yeah.
And there was always, and that is great for any sort of up-and-coming musician, is to play. I mean, the more you play, the better you get. So that's just the way it works. And, of course, the more diverse material you play is also fantastic for you because you get to play all kinds of things that you don't have to like it, but you just have to learn how to play it and understand it and understand where the music's coming from, and all these things you can sort of file away until perhaps you get around to writing songs of your own.
Yeah.
And you can start sort of borrowing wholesale.
Well, that's right, isn't it? I mean, in those early days,
that's what he's done.
Yeah, and I suppose in those early days, it was all covers anyway, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. That's exactly what we were doing in these bands. Joe Bear, I remember playing in that with John Wheeler, who ran the Happy Days sort of empire and the Wicker Furniture and stuff. But John was a real sort of face in the bands. And that's where I met Boone Gould and Phil Gould, the brothers from Shanklin, who we sort of went on to become the sort of the mainstay at Level 42, and Mike Jolliffe, he was around. Chris Mew was played in the band. Richard Bennett, who sadly
passed away, didn't he?
Yeah. Just all the island faces, really. And of course we were playing the nights that all the other bands, the Pump House Gang, and all of these sorts of guys, and Paul Athley's bands were playing in the other places. It was really great days and fantastic experience. But that's what I wanted to do, was play drums. Yeah. And so when I went up to London to do that, living in the back of my van for a few days, the only shop I could get a job in, because I didn't have any qualifications, all my mates seemed to be going to music college, and suddenly, of course, you had this thing about your parents saying you really ought to do your homework and you should study. Yeah. And all that time about why.
Why do I want to do that for?
Why do I want to do that for?
I want to play in a rock and roll band.
And while I'm shivering in the back of a van, you start thinking, that's why. Yeah. They didn't mention this bit, did you? There was I'll tell you one funny thing about this milk van. that sort of proved that it was a milk van is that at some stage they'd lost the fuel cap, the filler cap for it at the back of the van.
Yeah.
And so the farmer, and farmers being farmers, he'd used an old rubber milking suction cup from the inside of one of the milking units with a wooden bung in. But this thing is about 4 feet long, and he'd never really trimmed it off. So he just fed it into the tank, and then it bunged up on the end. And I do remember that on my first trip up to London, going up the A3. This was in the days when people used to serve you petrol. I pulled in at a garage. And the sort of petrol attendant came out and walked round to the van. And I said, "Could you put in, like 50p for me, please?" Which would have filled it up.
It would have done it those days, yeah.
And this guy, I can remember the look on his face. I was watching him in the rearview mirror as he was sort of unravelling this thing, which is like something from Alien because it was pink. That was the thing too, and it looked like a spinal column. And I do remember thinking, I mean, for me, no difference. But
no, that's right.
It really did look like the sort of. The poor van had a prolapse or something.
And
this guy was starting to feel guilty, what have I done? I've killed his van.
Excellent. Right, let's going to play one of your songs, Mark. This is Something About You.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good song, this, isn't it?
It's not a bad song. I still feel it's one of the best songs we ever came up with, actually.
Yeah, I think it's great. Let's have a listen.